It's so
Yeah.
many I can. But the one thing I want to say is, mom, dad, and everybody else, you're not bad. You're not bad at parenting just because your child is going through the situation, and because you're trying to do the things, the interventions to help your child. You're doing good. You're actually doing good. You just don't know
Exactly.
everybody to go to. So you are doing good. Let me say that again. So if you coming to me and you're thinking that it's going to be a judgment, no, you are a human being. That's what you are. You're a human being and you're doing amazing.
Hey, family, welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your host, Rodney Butler. We have another great episode for you today. We have another one of our mental health series that you guys know by now that I absolutely love doing and will continue to um, put emphasis on for the Black Man's Roundtable, not only this platform, but the other platforms inside of the Black Man's Roundtable franchise. So yes, I'm going to keep doing this, guys, until mental health is no longer taboo in our community. I think we're making a lot of progress, but I still think we have a long way to go as far as understanding and embracing mental health as we do with our physical health. So without further ado, we have another great mental health professional on for you today, and his name is Kendrick Love. And I'm going to read you a little bit about who this young man is, and you'll see that you'll be glad to learn some stuff from him tonight. Kendrick Love is an experienced behaviorist with a strong background in supporting individuals facing autism spectrum disorder, developmental disabilities, trauma, addiction, depression, and other behavioral challenges. He has collaborated extensively with parents, educators, school teachers, and first responders, both in the U.S. and internationally. His expertise in crisis management, de-escalation strategies, and positive behavior support has been honed through diverse experiences, including assisting children and adults during the COVID-19 pandemic in Kuwait. With a master's in educational leadership, a bachelor's in recreational therapy, and an upcoming doctorate in childhood behavior psychology, he has a solid foundation in behavioral sciences. His roles at the American School of Kuwait and Cobb County School District's Haven Academy further demonstrates his ability to develop behavior plans, analyze data, and train educators. He has also presented on student and teacher behavior strategies overseas. So as you can see, guys, Mr. Love is well rounded and have a host of experiences. And without further ado, we're going to bring him on. Kendrick Love, sir, how you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for bringing me aboard. It's an honor to talk to you all.
Absolutely, brother. It's an honor having you on. We have a host of topics and questions that we want to ask you tonight, so you can help the viewers and followers of the Black Man's Roundtable understand maybe some of the behaviors that they may see or that they need to look out for when it comes down to their young adults in their lives, or their teens or their children or their young adults in their lives. So we will get started, and we're going to ask you a little bit under some background stuff. And the first question is, what age groups do you primarily work with, and what challenges are common in these groups?
Oh gosh. First of all, the ages that I usually work with is probably between 6 and 24. The usual. It's a difficult answer because it fluctuates on the ages. So,
Right.
but my clients, because the truth is, I even have a client that's actually, I think probably about age 26, and then a parent actually wanted to at one point wanted to become the client themselves. So that's why it's a difficult answer. Um, And the second
Right.
question was
As far as the challenges, because the challenges vary so much. Yeah.
exactly.
Got
That's
it.
exactly it. So it depends
Got
on
it.
what they're looking for. So that's why it's a difficult answer.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a
Okay.
versatile answer.
And yeah, and I thought it would be a little bit because I knew that your age group was very wide
Yeah.
because some people work specifically with the with like elementary kids and so
Yeah.
forth and so on. But that's okay because the great part about it is we will, with some of the other questions, we will be able to the audience will be able to understand maybe challenges from the different age groups just by the way you answer some of these
Yeah.
questions. So it's not a big deal.
Because
Yep.
usually,
So
because I'm sorry, because yeah, usually what happens is that when dads are bringing their kids to me, they're usually in the single digit. But when moms are bringing it, if it's dad that's leading it, and if then it's single digit. The oldest you'll get is probably about 9, maybe 10.
okay.
But when it comes to moms, if they're bringing the child, then usually the child is going to be in the teens or up. So that's why it depends on the
Oh,
client. Yeah.
okay.
Dads.
Well, that's a
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
okay. No, I'm just saying that's a dynamic that that yeah that I it's kind of it's kind of very dynamic in that with the younger ones it's the dads and with the
Yeah.
older ones and I know that's not the case 100%,
Yeah.
but I know that that's probably a trend that you're saying that happens
Yes.
and maybe in another show we can get into why that happens. But not for this one, not for this show, but maybe we can get into why is that, like why is that the case. But anyway, it's just a little intriguing.
Hmm.
um but anyway, we'll move on to the next, which is uh what are the most common behavioral challenges you
So
encounter in your work? And again, I know that's going to be a little different, but common, and you can even use age groups if you need to.
easy. That's an easy answer. I almost interrupted you answering that. The most common behavior, yeah, the most common behavior is socialization. Socialization.
Okay.
Children, and I don't speak on. So I'm not a binary type of person. I'm on more
Right.
percentages or ratings. And so we're going to sit and
Right.
we're going to say the greater majority of the behaviors. So when you go down to the antecedent of most behaviors, you can really come, a great deal of them has to do with more of the children struggling from socialization. So that's the biggest problem across the board. Across the board.
Okay. And could you go into socialization a little bit more for those parents or caregivers?
Yeah, children, because I try not to get so long-winded, but children
Right.
are the concentrated dose of parents, of adults. So whatever's going on in
Hmm.
society, all you got to do is look at children. They're going to be the ones that's going to sit there and see the real deal. And so children does not know how to have friends. A lot of what happens is that children have become much more isolated, and they don't know how to have friends. They're much more of looking for this red flag of a situation from some kid. Well, this kid did this to me, so now I have this right to do this behavior. So that's one of the things that you're seeing is instead of how we used to have it where kids can run down the street and go and play out in the
Hmm.
street and play all day and rarely get in a fight and come back home. Well, that's not the case right now. More children are struggling, the neurodivergent children, all of them right now across the board are struggling on how to be able to be able to hold on to friends and be able to think on a more empathetic level to those around them more than themselves. So it's an increase in children being a little bit more about themselves than it is than their peers around them. So that's why y'all see a lot of behaviors that's going on right now.
Got it. Got it. Um, how do you differentiate between normal developmental behaviors and those that require intervention?
Ooh, that's a wide answer. Um, it really depends on the background. It depends on the interactions. It depends on the grades. It depends on the relationship between the parent. It depends on it can depend on It's a number of things. It takes it takes some research for you to really start understanding. Um, that's a difficult answer. Yeah.
So maybe an example would be more appropriate. So we talked about how do we differentiate between normal developmental behaviors and
Mhm.
those that require intervention, right? So maybe you can give parents and caregivers an example of something that would be a normal behavior that they
Yeah.
may be concerned about, and it's like, no, this is normal, and
Yeah.
then maybe something that a behavior that will require different will require intervention. So maybe you can give an example
Yeah,
to help
because
parents and caregivers. Yeah.
one of the number one things that parents bring when they bring this, because the child has siblings. So what parents thinking is that, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
my siblings are, they're always getting in fights. That's normal. So children are always
Right.
going to get, the first competitor in a child's life is going to be their sibling. So they're going to just keep on. So that's just going to happen. Now, when a child is always isolating themselves, so when the child, okay, they have siblings, but they're always in the corner. Okay, well, that's an issue. If a child is not talking and they're in the corner, that's an issue. If a child is always just isolating themselves, yeah. If a child is
Got it.
if the behavior does not align with the other children, and I don't mean like personality, but I mean behavior, like they're being able to if the child is basically throwing things, their tantrums are
Mm-hmm.
destructive, and other
Mm-hmm.
kids are there, and it does not align with all of the children, then that shows that, okay, this child is going through something isolated than with the rest of the family. So yeah, it varies on a lot of those
Yeah.
things.
Got it. Great example, and of something that is normal and they're concerned about, because a lot of these behaviors are defense mechanisms,
Yeah.
and as well. And it's like, well, why are there, even manipulation? Manipulation is a defense mechanism, right?
Oh
And
yes.
so, but when the kid is no longer manipulating or things like that, then so you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I could use a great
go ahead.
example. For like I'm dealing with a kid right now that's actually that is a young girl, and she's 12 years old. Because I'm dealing with a situation right now, and she stole a
Hmm.
phone from her friend. That is already a problem in itself. But here, this 12-year-old girl, this is what also she did. She changed the passwords to the girl's phone. She was able to sit here and delete the girl's contact list, as well as now what she's, and then she after she did that, she put in hers. She took pictures. Like she was in she did complex situations that shows, okay, your skill level is pretty high for a 12-year-old to go and do, to just take a phone. So that's the point. And so it was very, very well thought out. I told her mom, I was like, your baby got a skill. So let's work on her behavior, but let's keep that
Hmm.
skill. So, so yeah,
Right, right,
that's a
right. Yeah.
difference. That's a difference.
Got it. Got it. Um, what role does environment like homeschool and community plays in shaping youth behavior?
Yes, education is definitely education 100%. I uh worked in the school system, and you was definitely able to sit here and see the importance of education. The environment, definitely you can tell the kids who came from a hard environment and an unstable environment. So it's one of the things that children need need seriously. They need stable environments, and they need a good nutrition, because I can guarantee you I was able to track a kid's behavior just by his by what he ate. So I was in charge of the
Right.
data. So when I read the data, because I my job was to go and study the child. So I studied the child's
Hmm.
background, I studied the medicines, I studied all of those things. And one time and then what I ended up finding out about one kid was that he had red dye. It would be, I would say, okay, what did he eat? And it, because the data would always show at lunch, or where his behavior, I'm gonna say just before lunch. And so then that's when I started finding out, okay, here, he didn't do it at this day. So what's going on? But then I started discovering what the child was eating, and I realized, oh, okay, wait a minute. There's certain foods that's causing this kid to go in and have behavior issues. So yeah, it's a multitude of things.
Okay. And because that diet, the students or the young person's diet can come from all three of those areas,
Yes.
from home, from
Yes.
school, and from
100.
community. But when we're talking about the role the environment plays in shaping that youth behavior, let's take them one by one. So let's go backwards a little bit. Let's talk about how the community, how do you think, or what you've seen that the community can play a role, or the role that it plays in a young person's behavior.
Yes. Uh, uh, Let me just be transparent to everybody. One of the things that I definitely consider and see that's playing a hard role, especially in our community, is this friction between men and women. It is definitely, you can see it. You can hear when the kids are talking that we definitely need to figure out how to develop a better relationship. I'm not telling us to stay married or anything of that nature. That's not my business. But what
Right.
I can say
Mhm.
is that the this this power struggle between the men and the women is definitely playing a part with children's behaviors, because I definitely see,
Hmm.
okay, I've seen so much, and when you sit there and you're watching how children respond to each other from what they've learned, you could definitely see that there's a dynamic that where we need to learn how to be able to start appreciating or how to respect each other. So that is definitely one of the things I see.
Okay, and when you say power struggle, well, first of all, when you say our community,
Black community.
what community are you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, black community. So culturalization. So
Oh, the black.
what?
Okay, okay. I
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I just
right.
wanted to make sure. That I mean, I thought that what you was talking about, but I don't. I just try not to assume anything. And so, but yeah, I figured you were
Yeah,
talking about the black community.
yeah.
And when you say power struggle between the men and women, are we talking about maybe the young people seeing um like a struggle between like gender roles,
I've
or
seen.
could you go into that a little bit more when you say the power struggles between men and women, just so the audience will know, and what you're
Yeah,
where you're going.
so there is very, very difficult. But again, children are the concentrated dose of our behavior. So what we're
Correct.
doing
Hmm.
out, like right now, only thing, we're being politically correct. We won't go and say certain things. But with children, you take all that political
Hmm.
correctness and they direct, and all they're doing is just relaying what it is that they're hearing. So when you're hearing children sit there and go in and uh, because I'm trying not to be so graphic on a lot of things, but when you're hearing kids cuss and you're hearing them cuss, and
Hmm.
it's particular like their body parts saying, "Hey, suck my so and so," and the music that they're playing, and here it is,
Hmm.
it we we have the kids sitting at the adult table way too much. They need to be sitting down. And
Okay.
because we're having the discussions. So when adults are having the discussions at the table, but what's happening is that you're allowing the kid to sit at the table in the discussion and also being a part of the discussion. When a child needs to be learning how a child just needs to be sitting at a kid's table, enjoying their enjoying how to develop and grow out of their imagination. But here it is, children is
Gotcha.
not really operating so much on working with their imagination, like going outside to play. Children need to be able to
Right.
go outside. But here it is, as they stay
Yeah.
inside, guess who they're staying around more of? So if they're staying around us instead of
Hmm.
out playing, then yeah, they're going to pick
Hmm.
up a lot of what's going on between the adults. That's just one of the things. So but it's
Right.
definitely where children are involved way too much in adult affairs.
Yeah, and we have to remember too that um well, we have nature and nurture when it comes down to
Yeah,
who we are as people and how we behave.
yeah,
And so we have to also take responsibility, like you saying, as adults, that some of this behavior is learned. But see, we want to just always say that we want to look at behaviors and stuff as we want to diagnoses, right? And diagnoses,
yes,
behavior is not a diagnosed thing. And so, yeah, and so behavior is
exactly.
just what it is. And so, we're literally talking about behaviors in young people. Now, when we talk a little bit about, diagnosis, ADHD and that kind of thing, yes, but that's separate in and of itself of behavior. So I just wanted to just bring it home exactly what you're saying. And so we have to be cognizant and aware that, kids pick up on our behavior and do this stuff. And then when they go to school and do it, and maybe people outside of our community don't understand exactly how our children are culturalized, if you will, then they want to put them in, they want to label them, and then the parent kind of get upset. So but go ahead, Kendra, like you was about to add on to that.
Oh yeah, no, I was agreeing 100%. Like when you were saying about ADHD, ADHD does not mean behavior. It does not mean that the child has
Exactly.
behavior. So
Nope.
when we're sitting here, we're trying to, cause like exactly what you said, we're trying to give a word to everything because the child is doing something that we don't really know how to work with or control. And so what we do is we keep on giving them, okay, well, this child has ADHD, black boys. So we got he
Mm-hmm.
ADHD because he doesn't know how to sit down in his chair. Well, that's not the case. So we can't just go
Right.
through. And the truth of the matter is, if it's going to be ADHD, we need to develop a cultural response if you're going to sit in through all of these ADHD, and not a behavioral response. So if I sit here and you're going to be
Exactly.
diagnosing all of these young boys with ADHD, then you need to, then if that's going to be the case, then we need to be able to start developing, okay, if this young man is sitting there coming from this area and he's diagnosed with ADHD, let's go ahead and develop a intervention or a specific type of plan so that he can be able to go and show and be able to be successful. So that's one of the things that I definitely I agree with you 100% on. Trying to always put
Yeah.
a term on a behavior. So yeah, instead of just being
Exactly.
natural.
And
Yeah.
exactly. And so, and what we have to keep in mind, like you saying, since you specifically brought up black boys, are the most diagnosed and misdiagnosed
Yes.
of all the young people, especially in
Yes.
our school systems and stuff like
Yes.
that. But at the end of the day, is that behaviors, it does not take a specialist. And what parents and caregivers need to understand is that behaviors don't take a they behaviors don't take a don't necessarily need don't require a specialist for your child, for your student. Teachers, highly qualified teachers in the state of Georgia are trained to deal with behaviors, right? So you don't have to have a special educator. You don't have to have a speech pathologist or anything else. It's just that teacher needs to learn how to deal with that behavior. And we can't, have especially our young boys being taken out of, instruction because of behavior when it's not a diagnosis like, ADHD. And like you're saying is that, well, diagnosing with ADHD, that gets them out of here, that gets them with a specialist, so we just have to be very aware about behaviors and about diagnoses and stuff like that. But yeah, go ahead, Kendrick.
Yeah, I was going to say jump on at least about the teachers, so about the statement of the teachers. Well, one of the things about it is because my position when I was in the school system was an intensive interventionist. So I was a first
Yes.
responder. I was a first responder to child behavior. So anybody who doesn't understand that basically means that if a child got in an argument with the teacher, I was called. But it also meant I dealt with crisis. So I dealt with the worst things. So things that you see on television or what children are, I prevented it or I've had to deal with it. So I've dealt with the worst. So the whole idea is that when we're talking about the teachers, the problem is we give it is the teachers are having way too much on their plate, and everybody basically. But the thing about it is what everybody doesn't understand is that there needs to be a program to need to be put in place to help support the teachers because it's a lot to say. So that's one of the reasons why it's definitely where the interactions, like everything, like the culture of school has changed so quickly that there has not been any way. There's been a short or a slow way of working with that. So that's the thing about the teachers.
Okay, great. Um, we briefly talked about intervention strategies and talked about ADHD. So my next question is, how do you approach working with children with neurodivergent conditions such as ADHD and autism?
Very cool. So the first thing first is that I see, okay, there's how's this child feel about themselves? Do they have a low self-esteem? How's the child, this child has friends? So it's important to understand, is this child having friends? Do they keep friends? What's the kind of relationship that the child has with the parent? So it's really trying to understand the child's community, because 90% of a child's behavior has to deal with their community, their interactions. So is this child what kind of recreation is this child being able to do for themselves? It's a list of things that I need to see, to check out, to find out what is causing this child to respond. What is the pebble in that child's shoe? As I always tell, as I give the analogy to parents, let me come see, because it could be just something small. It doesn't have to be always something traumatic. It doesn't have to be those things. It could be just one small thing. A child, some kid, they want to be friends and they don't know how to be friends. Okay, well, let's go and teach your child how to be friends. Let's go and teach your child. Your child feels like they're never successful in anything. Okay, well, let's go and teach your child how to be successful. And so neurodivergent, a lot of times what they do is they'll be hard on themselves and they'll hold themselves accountable to a level. So what you got to do is find out how can they be able to communicate what they're going through and how to be able to be successful in their interactions. That's the usual.
Great. Great. Um, Kind of a follow up a little bit on that is, can you provide examples of positive reinforcement techniques that parents and teachers can use?
All right, so it's different between parents and teachers. So when I'm instructing parents,
Mm-hmm.
because I instruct parents and I instruct teachers, so because it's all about what kind of control you have. So we have to work with. So parents, you have control at home. So one of the best strategies I always say is cheat. It's one of the easiest strategies to use. Go for a walk. Take your family for a walk, and it can be like 3 days a week. Just go for a walk. You don't even have to talk, because what happens is that the body starts being able to feel so good. It gets those good juices, and because of that, everybody just starts to learn how to talk. It's a bonding situation to where the kids being able to learn how to talk to you. And the only thing is that parents, make sure you don't talk. Don't lead the conversation. Listen to the kid and respond. So that's the whole, I call it reflective listening. So, or it's called reflective listening. And what happens is that the child is going to eventually say something that could be just as small as nothing. And you just respond off of it. You give a positive reinforcer to it. But it's easy. That's all. It's simple. Now, for teachers, I have to see what kind of support system that the teacher has first, because this has to be where, what do I have to understand what kind of support or what kind of control the teacher has in that classroom, and what kind of control the teacher is not aware of in that classroom. So teacher can't just go and say, let's go and walk. So what kind of interactions that a teacher can do, which again goes to, I call it positive practicing, which is that child comes through that door. That child needs to acknowledge, okay, that's first thing first is that child had the first thing first is a child needs to be acknowledging the teacher. So when a child comes through that door, good morning. You didn't say good morning. Go back out the door. Come back in. Good morning. There you go. And you get that positive reinforcement. So I teach teachers on practice positive practicing, and I also teach them on how to be able to give powerful praises, specific praises. You did a great job coming through that door. And you see how you was able to go and talk to me? I'm so proud of you. Give me a high five. All right, go sit down. Or if they are on a token policy, all right, well, you earn points because you was able to do that correctly. If they're on a token system. So it's a lot, because in the school system, it can't just be with the teachers' interactions. It has to go from a tier system, as I developed, and I worked in the school system, which was teacher interaction, restorative to justice practice, interactions from the administration. Everybody has to be able to work in tandem for that teacher to be able to go and say, I can interact with this kid. Because in truth, when a kid comes down the hallway, every teacher should be able to know how to interact with that kid, should have the right to interact with that kid and say, okay, you got a behavior problem? Go back and try it again. Good morning. Good morning to you. Very good. So that's the point. So, sorry to get long
Yeah,
winded.
and I think that's very. Oh, no. We got plenty of time, and I think that it is something that is taken. Well, I'm not gonna say taken for granted, but it's something that is need more emphasis on it, and that is that when you talk about a school system, every teacher in the building, must understand that they are a part of the behavior strategies for those
Right.
students and young people that have behavioral issues. And so same way at home, right?
Yeah.
Every adult and every person of age who understands needs to understand that if there's a young person in the home with a behavior issue, then every adult and every other person that's able to should be a part of the behavior, the intervention and the strategies, in helping that young person with a behavior issue.
Yeah, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
When a parent brings to me, the first things I let them understand is that, let me make sure to let you understand
Wait,
that.
you know what, Kendrick? Hold on for a second, because I think you're about to go right into my next. But that's good, because
Go
that
ahead.
means that this conversation is going very good, because
Yeah.
it is leading right into. So I think so. Here's the next question.
Yeah.
How do you involve families in the behavioral improvement process?
Well, the first thing first is, as when they come to me, I let them understand this is not just about your child. This isn't. So when you're telling me the things about your child, I'm not going to be a police officer where I'm going to be just going to be blunt force. Everybody has their interaction. Everybody has their responsibility in the circle of a child. When they say it takes a village, I understand that. So that's the point of me organizing the village so that we can make sure to go and give the proper intervention for that child. So when mom or dad comes to me, and here's the beautiful thing, I even have a client who's the dad is a police officer. So just to let everybody understand, when mom or dad comes to me, I let them know that we got to work on strategies for you as well as the child. When the child is going using their calming down or their coping strategies, they need to be able to voice it to you and you be aware of it. And then you need to be able to create an environment to where they can be able to go and use the coping strategies. But let's make sure that you still can be a parent, a human being, not a parent, I'm sorry, a human being. So you do have the space of where you can make mistakes. What I do is I help the parent come up with strategies. So say like when they give their kids butt whoopings and they are so afraid to tell me, well, I'm whipping my child behind. I don't usually go and tell them to go and stop doing whipping their child behind. I'll be like, okay, unless it's really, really destructive. What I do is I say, let's give you other types of strategies. So let me go ahead and show you that. Let me break this down, because while you're whipping your child behind, this is what can sit here. This is where the problem, and you notice that it's not working. Well, this is most likely why. Is that child in therapy? Is that child, is anybody in therapy? Are you in therapy? What kind of background do you have? Do you come from a traumatic background? And then let's go and find out about school. And I also get in touch with the schools, talk to the teachers, the administrators, the counselors. I've been talked to everybody that were willing to sit here and work with me to understand the child's behavior. And usually, 90% of the time, you start to understand the child's behavior by then. And then all you do is you just keep it going and telling everybody, keeping them informed. Here's the strategy for the child. And the strategies are like when the child's coming to school, I'm making sure that strategy does not interfere with that teacher's running the classroom. So it's not, okay, well, hey, Mr. Love said that I can go out the door. No, Mr. Love never said that. No. Is it okay that the young man can scribble on a sheet of paper when they're starting to get frustrated? Is that okay with you, Mr. Smith? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So what you have to do is every single time that you're about to go and you need to scribble on that sheet of paper, you got to communicate to the teacher, hey, I'm getting frustrated. Can I scribble on a sheet of paper? That's the thing. So it keeps the communication from parent I teach the child to communicate to the parent and the teacher, but I also make sure that the teacher and the parent, because I also give questions to the parent on how to ask the teacher to maximize on information that's being transferred. So it's not just, okay, well, your child's behavior is coming to me. It's a whole arc of everything. So not just small. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. You kind of hit on this a little bit, but just in case you want to dig into it a little bit more, especially when we're talking about, you kind of hit into, defiancy, but what advice would you give to parents dealing with a defiant or withdrawn child? What advice?
Defined and withdrawn would definitely be two different types of behaviors. And
Mm-hmm.
so, most likely, if a child is withdrawn, that's stemming close to trauma. Defiant child is much more of entitlement. So there's a different strategy. So for a great example, let's go back to where the young lady that took the defiance is more self-interest. So what I usually suggest to the parent is we need that child to start being able to understand empathy of others. So the part of the restorative justice practice I would give is volunteering or speaking to people, learning how to say hello, so that that child can start developing empathy for those that child comes around. And the beautiful part is that children are wired for empathy. So if a child is showing the reward system of empathy, and the reward system doesn't have to be buying an Xbox, a child could get a high five, and it's statistically, not statistically, but through studies shows that it is just as much as sitting here buying the best gift, a candy bar, a high five. So the positive reinforcer, the attention, um, one of the reasons why it's hard for me to answer these questions because there's so much to come with the answer.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
and so that's why it's difficult, because you have to break down the positive reinforcement, the negative reinforcement, what's needed in the positive reinforcement, what's needed in the child needs in the negative reinforcement, what does that child need in the punitive, and what does that child need in the extinctual. So majority of what I'm going to focus on is I got to increase that percentage of positive reinforcement. Is that parent capable from their traumatic experience able to start giving a child the proper percentages of a positive reinforcer? Because like I said, you beating that child behind, that should not be, when you go into interaction of a child's behavior, that should not have the highest percentage of behavior. Positive and negative reinforcer are the two things that you need to aim at more than you need to aim for the tearing the child's behind up or yelling at the kid, putting the kid in the corner. Actually, the better choices are definitely of showing of a modified behavior, or a behavior to last the longest, is using positive and negative reinforcer. Whipping butts is for a quick fix. I told you behind up, but all right, now what you need to do is you need to put in place, what can I do? All right, I done told this child behind up. Now I need to increase on my interactions with this kid to let this kid know that they're successful. But I also need, for the negative reinforcer, I need this kid to learn how to work for what it is to be successful. So those two things need to increase usually. So it's a very, very complex. It's not a small, because it takes a lot of understanding for the parent, the area, as well as the child. So it's a lot of work. So that's why please excuse me for being difficult on answering those questions.
No, no, man, you're doing absolutely great, Kendrick. In fact, it gives me a good time to remind the viewers, to remind the followers that that yes, these, when you're talking about mental health, especially when you're talking about mental health in young people and in children, it is always like he said, it's very difficult to answer these questions because they are so individualized. They are so specific to a child, and as being a mental health professional myself, well, being a special educator prior anyway, I understand and that people kind of want people want you to be more specific because they're thinking about their own young adult or their own young child. So I understand how it can be a little bit, a little difficult for you to answer those questions. But what I want to remind the followers in the audience is that that is why at the end. So make sure you hang around, get to the end of the program, because at the very end, we're going to make sure that you know how to reach out to Kendrick Love to, for if you have any specific questions or anything like that in the services he provide about your young person. So, but yeah, he's doing a great job and giving a broad analysis. But of course we can't get specific because, there are going to be, several hundred people to look at this video and it's like, so yeah, but they'll get that opportunity at the end. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. And so next we will jump into how do you address the intersection of behavioral issues and mental health in young people. So because it is quite different. And there is an intersection between behavioral issues in mental health in young people. How would you address that?
Yeah. So the first thing first is I start educating, because the first thing is I got to stop the parent, because a lot of times parents, one of the first things I do is I stop a parent when they come to ADHD, and then they say, well, maybe my child has ADHD, and I'm like, ADHD does not create the behavior. That does not create the behavior. ADHD does not create the behavior. That's an excuse for we're saying we're just trying to put a term on something that actually can be worked with. So that's the first thing. So I always separate the behavior from the disability. An autistic kid, just because a child is autistic, does not dictate that a child is now going to beat you up. That's not how it goes. Now it definitely means that a child may have communication issues that you need to go and establish with that kid. I worked with one young man that he could not speak, and he was beating everybody. He had a physical issue, and he was beating up everybody. And then finally, I got a chance to work with the young man, and his behavior stopped.
So let me ask you this, Kendrick, real quick. Mm-hmm. So when you say he could not speak, was he mute or was he nonverbal?
He was his nonverbal. He would mumble. So he was like
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So he had
thanks.
Yeah. So he was nonverbal, but here's the beautiful part. That's why I love your question, because that's exactly what I was gonna say. He was nonverbal, but if you listen to him, you knew he knew what he was asking about. He knew it. Okay. So what ended up happening is that I sat here and I worked not to his disability. I actually started working towards his personality. And when I started working towards his personality, which is he likes being this flamboyant, that he's very social. All right, well then let's go and teach you how to be social. And like he would sit there and he'd grab somebody on the shoulder. I'm like, no, you don't grab them. Touch them on the shoulder. Say hello. And I would make sure that everybody stopped to speak to him. But and we would go through say hello to this. I want you to say hello. Then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna give him a high five, and then you're gonna walk away. That's what you're going to do. All right, let's go practice this with this teacher. Say hello. Good. Do you want to ask how you're doing? And he would say, yeah, but everybody would understand. And then they would say, well, I'm fine. Good. And then I say, okay, give a high five. And so we started practicing on that. So that was one of the things. I gave him his dignity of, okay, well, wait a minute. He does not have the disability. Like I would sit here and I let him know sometimes, you done lost your mind. Clean that up. No, sir. Because he thought because he had a disability, I don't have to clean up. No, you're going to go and you're going to clean your mess up. But he enjoyed the responsibility of what he was given. So the behavior stopped. He still had the disability. So when everybody, and I just want to say to everybody in the audience is watching, so please excuse me, but it's definitely where the disability does not create the behavior. Trauma can create it, but not a disability. A disability is just disability, and we got to learn how to work with the disability. So
Yep. And at the end of the day, they just want one of the biggest ways to alter behavior is to treat, especially with young people, treat them as normal as
Yes.
possible. They
Right.
just want to be. They just want to be
Right.
normalized. They want to be treated normal.
Right.
So yeah. So
Right.
I'm glad you talked about that. Yep.
Yes.
And that's what you did. You treated him normal. You made him
Right.
responsible for cleaning up and everything else, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Because we all know that young people, they really just want to fit in.
Yeah.
And just because you have a behavior issue, and even if you have a disability, you still want to fit in,
Yeah.
as a young person. So yeah. Next is, what signs, we hit on this a little bit earlier, but what signs indicate that a youth might need additional mental health support?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, that is more than
Yeah.
just behavior.
Right.
Yeah,
First thing first would be the emotional state. So, is the child sleeping? So, does the child it, because I'm trying to think. I try to go in my head to think of specific specific examples,
right. No, you good. Take your
but
time. Yeah,
yeah, it is the child sleeping. How is the child communicating? Is the child communicating the tones in the child's communicating? Is the child being disrespectful? Is the child purposely being disrespectful? Is a child's interaction responsive, or is it thought out? So does your child, when a child gets overwhelmed in a situation, because everybody deals with anxiety, so does the child go off running? Is a child attention seeking? What is the child doing for the attention seeking? Because usually parents understand the child is attention seeking. So what is your child doing? Is your child throwing stuff across the room? And I remember there was a video of a young man in a store, and he was pulling stuff off the shelf as he's walking, and it was falling on the ground, and people was like, yo, that boy need to get his butt whipped. And I'm like, y'all missing the picture. He's tearing things down. He already expects, so apparently he's expecting a negative outcome, so that's what he's doing. So chances are you may need to sit there and just take that boy for a walk and start developing a relationship with him, so you can understand him, so he can be able to say, okay, hey, this is why you're upset. But he does have to clean up his mess. So it's not where, okay,
yeah,
this young man is not like, oh, okay, well, no. No, bro, you done made that mess. You gotta clean that up. But let me tell you something. When you finish, man, we're gonna finish sitting there and having a conversation, okay? But you gotta clean up your mess. That's what we all do. We all make mistakes, but we gotta clean up our mess. So it's it's definitely where, what is that child? What are the signs of that child? Sleeping,
right.
uh, what kind of, when the child gets angry, what does that child do? Does they scream at themselves? Do they scream at you? So those types of, every piece of that means something. It does.
Yeah, yeah,
Every piece of it is a dollar worth. So
yeah. Absolutely, and I think as well, kind of going on both ends of the spectrum. If a young person is if they are not necessarily attention seeking, but if they are just like just doing every single thing, just going above and beyond in acting out, as we would call it, acting out, right? And they are just doing some things that is highly embarrassing to the parent or the caregiver, or on the opposite spectrum, if they are being very, very, very withdrawn, may be indicators that they need additional, mental health support. And of course, there's things like, self-harm, self-mutilation,
right,
these types of things that
yeah,
that we know this is not behavior anymore at this point. If they're biting themselves, if they're scratching themselves to a point where blood is drawn or skin is broken sometimes, and those kind of things.
yeah. Because that was one of the things. I'm glad you're saying that, because to make sure to let everybody understand. Uh, and I make a joke every now and then when I see a Tom Cruise movie, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I had to do that to stop a kid. So I have been that kind of guy who's jumped in front of a car just before it hit me and a child. I've
Yeah,
definitely been that kind of guy who has been stabbed or cut because of trying to go and de-escalate the situation with a kid, or chipped tooth I've been that guy that has definitely gone through those things, and yes, those are definite signs, but they're quiet signs as well. So you just
Okay,
gotta know what
great.
to look for.
All right. Yeah, got to know what to look for. And all right, Kendrick. Now we're going to get into the fun part uh, of the um,
Yeah.
of the conversation, and that is um, what success story stands out in your career, and what made it memorable.
I would say I'm gonna try not to get emotional.
Take your time, brother.
It was a loss, but it was a win.
Gotcha.
So to make sure to everybody, I've seen children go through a lot. I've seen probably more than I should have, but I don't regret. I don't regret it at all. So when I'm sitting here watching children who, like, when I'm sitting here watching these school shootings, and it is definitely
Right.
impactful because how many times I prevented some type of situation like that. And I would definitely say, so many things pop up in my head. One of the things, and I'll share it because I keep up with his mom all the time, and I shared it with you all in the bio that I
Yeah.
had, uh, so that everybody understand, I had a student. Unfortunately, he turned out to be terminally ill, and I didn't want to give up on him because see, they always called me to go and work with the young man. And as I worked with the young man, when he did something good, my reward for him, I would say I would give coloring sheets. He was in elementary
Hmm.
because I worked with kids with elementary all the way up to age 22 or something like that in the program. And the young man, one he would always ask. I said, "What is it that you want for a reward?" And he would say, "I want the coloring sheet of the Black Panther." And so what I end up doing is that I always gave him I gave him the sheet. Like he worked for what he did when he was in crisis. I would sit here and I would make sure that he would, okay, your reward, did you do your work? And if he went in crisis, all right, let's help him come out of it. All right, you get a reward for this. And so, but what ended up happening, it's years ago and I still get choked up. But what
Yeah.
ended up happening
Never,
is
never,
that,
never goes away, man.
no, as the young man, he ended up getting sick, and he ended up developing with they came he was sick for a few days, and then he goes to school. He goes and the teacher comes back and says it's bad, and she sits and says they found a cancer in his brain, and then later on, weeks later, they find out that it was terminal. And so I was like, and she sits there and says that, this is basically kind of, so they're going to take him out of the school. And his mom took him, and I said, I don't want to, we're going to give this man a fight chance. We're going to. And
Right.
so I'm getting upset because
Yeah.
I still get choked up about it. But
No, it's hey.
so I contacted my sister, who's good friends. She contacted Chadwick Boseman, and because I said we got to get Black Panther, and so I said, hey, can you contact him? And so 2 days later, now I put out the word several directions, but she contacted me about 2 days later. He contacted me, and he says, hey man, let's get this started. And he came to the event. It's on it. Chadwick Boseman meets Ian. You can look it up on YouTube, and he comes to meet Ian. As a matter of fact, when y'all see him get emotional on the blue screen, that on the series, that's Ian. He's getting emotional about Ian and the other young man because it was another young man. And
Okay.
the reason why that's impactful for me is that Chadwick was a bonus. But it was I had when that young boy
Take your time.
Why it bothers me is because this young man, his manics was not the fault of the community. It wasn't the fault of anything. It was a tumor that was affecting him that caused him to go manic. And when I say manic, it's a 10. Yeah. And we missed it. Yeah. But I learned how to interact and listen to kids because I had to use strategies. This was before we knew what was going on in his head, but I had to use strategies that caused him to calm down. And I had to learn those strategies. I had to learn to listen to him. But the problem was that it was too late listening to him. And so now here it is. We find out that this entire time that this young man has been going through this problem and he did not know how to communicate it and we did not know how to look for it. But now I know the signs of what it looks like. Now I know the signs of when there's a true mental issue with a child. But it took me to go through this situation with this young man to understand the signs of it. So my success story is that I'm talking to you here. I'm here to talk to you all because I'm here to be able to talk to you all because of the experiences that I had to go through with him and other young males. So there's my experience. There's the honey, the sour and the sweet.
Yeah. And you notice, before I asked you that question, I said, well, because we're talking about reflection and that kind of thing, right? And a broader impact. And so it was like, well, hey, Kendrick, here comes the fun part. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that doesn't sound very fun. But here's the thing, is it difficult to talk about? Absolutely. But has it made you a broader educator? Has it brought in everything about, you being a behavior specialist? Absolutely. Yes. And there was a lot of fun times that came, you working with, I think his name Ian, right? With you working with Ian, and but it's just difficult to talk about, which is a lot of times the case with when interviewing or talking to behavior specialists and people that work in the mental health profession in this field, especially when you're talking about behavior. So yeah, but you got through it, brother.
Because I want to make sure to let everybody understand, because one of the things that I don't do. So when you come to me, if you decide to come use my services, I don't use this conflict between teachers and parents. Because one of the things that what parents has to understand with the anxiety that you're going through, let me throw this fact also, 40%, and we're talking about 40% of teachers that come into work are dealing with anxiety issues. So we're talking about those who are dealing with the real anxiety struggles. So that's one of the things I want to make sure. But teachers have to understand, parents are also dealing with issues as well, which is, am I a good parent because my child, I can't sit there and control this behavior. So, and I don't know where to run to. I don't know who can help me. I'm running to this therapist. This therapist is not working. He's getting in trouble in schools. I done got him the mentors. I done got all of these things. So there is a duality in anxiety from both sides that both need to understand that that neither one of you are doing a bad job. It's just that unfortunately times are not catching up with how to deal with the behavior.
Absolutely. So. Yep. All right, Kendrick. Couple more, and that is what advice? Because we know we have people watching. We know we have followers who are watching this, and so what advice would you give to someone pursuing a career in youth behavior specializations? And we don't know whether this is going to be a fun question or not, because at the end of the day, a lot of it going to have to do with your trek through, going through this process of becoming a behavioral specialist. But yeah, what advice would you give someone pursuing a career with youth behavioral specialization?
The first thing first I would say, because in training that I tell them, that I tell anybody who's going into that, first things first is you need to learn the art skills, two skills that you need to become an artist in, which is reflective listening. That basically reflective listening is when a child is saying something, you get the information and you're giving it back to the child. So the child says, I had a good day. You did? Oh my gosh, you had an amazing day. That is one. But that also, you also need to know how to reflective listen for the child is, okay, have a seat, please. What did I just ask you? You said have a seat. Very good. Now, if you hear at the end of every single time I give a direction or I'm listening to the child, you hear the other thing that you need to work on, which is powerful praising. You need to know how to be able to go in and give specific powerful praise to a child, because a child is always looking for that type of a positive praise. We're talking about children all the way up into teens. So we're not just talking about elementary. I'm talking about all the way up to a 12th grader. So where you can be able to go in, you need to learn how to be. I always give this strategy. I say, what you practice on is give five powerful, for one negative statement that you make, you need to learn how to give five powerful praises after that. If you sit there, you saying, okay, well, way to go, Goofy. But you know what? You did a great job going to the refrigerator and getting it yourself. You did a good job of being able to pour the milk. You did. You did make a mistake of not paying attention to the glass, and you wasted it. But guess what? You also knew how to go and clean that up on your own. So powerful praises, children needs to hear that a lot much more. So that's one of the things I say as you're going in. But you also, here's a critical and inconvenient statement. You need to understand about culturalization. Culturalization steps past political correctness. You need to understand that, like, let's use for a great example this. We're going to use Republicans and Democrats. That's culturalization still, because everybody went to this side because they felt this is what I reflect to. Where you need to be able to hear them as well. So if I need to hear a Republican, I need to hear a Democrat. I need to hear those things instead of being so binary in the thoughts. You're going to witness things that will go beyond your senses of reality. Like you will see a child eat food from under a trash can, and you're like, okay, what's going on at home, and why this child is trying to stay with the parent that's not caring. You're going to see some of the worst things, and you have to understand what you're getting involved in. And the best way to survive those, starting off, is understanding the culture, powerful praises, and reflective listening.
Great. Outstanding. All right, man, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you on. A lot of information, and like I said, people know that when we have our spectrum of guests on who come on because of our mental health series, I always tell them the same thing, Kendrick. This ain't the last time you've seen them. Kendrick, and they know that we have different specialists on, especially with mental health, because it is so broad. And, so look, you're going to see Mr. Kendrick Love again. I guarantee you that. You're going to see him, hopefully, in the very near future as Dr. Kendrick Love. And, but he is definitely is our go-to guy for our resident expert, if you will, on youth and child behavior. He is the only mental health professional that we've had on. We've been doing this series now for a full year. We've had many people on in the mental health profession, but he is our resident, youth behavior person, because a lot of times with youth, it is behavior. It is not necessarily diagnoses and stuff like that. And like we say, they'll grow out of it. Yeah, they may, but they may not. But it's good to have a behavioral specialist on to help them grow, quote unquote, grow out of, whatever that behavior is. But anyway, Kendrick, it's been a pleasure. I was so glad, a couple of months ago you reached out to us, man. And I told you, brother, we're going to do everything we can to get you on before the end of the year. And look, we kept that, and we kept that promise because we love local, because people are starting to reach out to us that, that's some regional and some even outside the southeastern region. And so we're definitely want to give our local, and you're very, very local, and people about to find out how local you are, because you are getting ready to let the people know how they can reach you, how they can reach out for your services. Take it away, brother. Let them know.
Yes, so you can reach me at KendrickLove.com, first name, last name.com, KendrickLove.com, and all you have to do is go in there and register. This weekend we are doing an event. If you can stop by, we're doing a fundraiser for families, because we're not a nonprofit, we're a for-profit, and some families can't afford us. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to go, and there are definitely families who needs help. So what we do is we try to go in and help keep the lights on so that I can help them. So we're definitely in need of as much help and help of funds is if you can. If you can't, then we always need prayer warriors. So, but
Absolutely.
definitely.
And what's the name of the event, and what's the time of it, Kendrick?
The event is because my lady, she actually she does the managerial part, so she's gonna kick my behind if I say.
So don't worry about it. Okay, we'll make sure the graphic. Yeah, we'll make sure everything is up for it. You get it to us. We'll make sure that it gets up. And but look, that's great, man. So people know how to reach you, and like Kendrick talked about, just please, keep in mind when it comes to our community, a lot of times, especially with our young men, they are misdiagnosed. They are just undervalued a lot, especially within the school system. So it is good to have, brothers who are a reflection of these of our boys who is out here doing this kind of work. So, Kendrick, we definitely appreciate you, and hopefully that parents can get guided in the right direction before, their students and their young people, are misdiagnosed or marginalized or taken advantage of. So we definitely appreciate it, and we look to having you on again, hopefully before this school year ends, this 2024-2025 school year ends, because a lot of things come up at the end of the year, as you know, with IEPs and other things that parents may need to hear from you again before the school year ends. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate your patience and answering some difficult questions. And I also appreciate, I appreciate you sharing your emotion with experiences that you have. But before we close it out, Kendrick, anything else you would like to say to the audience?
First thing, I get upset when I get emotional about these stories. It's so many I get. But the one thing I want to say is, mom, dad, and everybody else, you're not bad at parenting just because your child is going through the situation, and because you're trying to do the things, the interventions to help your child. You're doing good. You are actually doing good. You just don't know everybody to go to. So you are doing good. Let me say that again. So if you're coming to me and you're thinking that it's going to be a judgment, no, you are a human being. That's what you are. You're a human being, and you're doing amazing. Teachers, I understand that your class is out and everybody's coming down on. You're doing a good job. Stay the course. Keep fighting. Everything. Administrators also. I work with you also. So you're doing good, everybody. Yeah. So just keep going. Keep pushing. And if you need to, contact me again, KendrickLove.com.
Thank you for that, brother. All right, family. Another great episode on our mental health series. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned a lot. But please feel free to reach out to Kendrick and his team, and I'm sure he can help with your young person that is in your life that may be going through a little little challenges right now. But anyway, as always, you can catch the Black Man's Roundtable the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable with Rodney and Rodney, and the second and fourth Thursday of the month, and the Black Man's Roundtable Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace. Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.